and the live stream. Okay, well, good evening, and I will call to order this April monthly meeting of the Village of Trumansburg Board of Trustees. This is also our annual organizational meeting for the second year in a row via Zoom. Everyone is in attendance. Are there any changes or additions or deletions to the agenda? I have one additional item under either new or old business. Either way, we need to finalize the agenda for the State of the Village meeting so that we can get postcards sent out as well as publicize the event. That day, the 22nd of May, will be busy. I understand that's Trumansburg School Senior Prom, as well as several other events that day. So we will get to that under new business, I expect. Okay, so I will open our annual organizational meeting, which traditionally has, we've broken into two parts. One is the appointments to various positions, some of which do require board approval. And then there's also the annual review of our various policies, village policies, which we adopt as a board. They're not subject necessarily to law, but they are something that we have to renew each year or enact each year. The mayoral appointments, anyone who has looked at the agenda will have been able to see there are essentially no changes from the previous year. Ben Carver will be deputy mayor. Our trustee commissions will be Keith Hannon for police, Jessica Giles for fire, Ben Carver for EMS, and Ben Darfler for DPW, water and sewer. We have several outside organizations of which we participate or take part. And our liaisons to those organizations will be myself to the Tompkins County Council of Governments with Ben Darfler as the alternate. Myself as the current vice chair of the Tompkins County Municipal Health Insurance Consortium with Tammy Morse as the alternate. And Jessica Giles will be our representative to the Trumansburg Area Chamber of Commerce. There are several advisory committees that have been in existence for a couple of years, and I'm announcing the creation of a new one effective tonight. Those advisory committees are the Comprehensive Plan and Zoning Revision Committee, chaired by Ben Darfler, the Street Tree Advisory Committee, chaired by Ben Carver, our recently formed Events and Tourism Committee, chaired by Jessica Giles. And tonight I'm announcing the formation of the Law Enforcement and Public Safety Committee. This is an extension and comes out of all of the good work that came out of the police reform efforts. Over the next couple of weeks, Keith and I and Chief Nelson will be discussing who should take part and who should be invited onto that committee. I expect it will be largely folks who participated in the reimagining police effort, but it's certainly not something that's limited to those folks. I don't want it to be an unwieldy committee, but we'll see how it goes. I'll have more to say, I think, when we announce the folks that we will be naming to the committee. Probably, I would think by our May meeting. That committee will be chaired by Keith Hannon. Our slate of officers remain unchanged from previous years. We have Tammy Morse as our village clerk, Morgan Wright as our deputy clerk, Vicki Badalamenti as our village treasurer, Tammy Morse as our records management officer. Chief Nelson is our police records access officer. Vicki is our budget officer. Tammy and Morgan are the official receiver of taxes. Tom Myers is our code enforcement officer and zoning officer. We do have an opening in the position of fire inspector. Tom is filling in temporarily, he hopes. So I am in conversations with some folks, some firefighters from the Ithaca Fire Department as to whether they may want to moonlight to do some fire inspection here. Our village attorney is Guy Crow, senior partner at Thaler & Thaler. Our official bank is Tompkins Trust Company. We have three official newspapers: the Ithaca Journal, the Trumansburg Free Press, and Tompkins Weekly. Sandy List stays on as our village historian. John Gregory is a member or our representative to the Youth Commission. We actually do have the ability to have 2 people on that. We have been looking for a second for some time, so if anyone knows anyone who would like to take part in that effort, certainly let me know. And David Allen is our village arborist. On to the planning board. John Alberg's term was up. It expired today, April 1st, actually, I should say. He has agreed to stay on for another term. And I appreciate John's willingness to do that. And we have an annually renewable alternate seat. We actually have 2 seats, only one of which is filled. And Greg Colucci, who has been our alternate for a little over a year, he will remain as our alternate on the planning board. On the ZBA, Tim Hamilton, who has been our chair for some time, his seat was also up, and he has agreed to stay on the ZBA as a member and as the chair. We have 2 alternate seats available on the ZBA, neither of which is filled. So again, if anyone is interested in either of those positions, please let me know. Our village marriage officers are myself and Jessica Giles, and anyone else in this meeting who would like to raise their hand to be added to that list. I'm looking at Keith or either Ben.
I digitally raised my hand. I did one last year. It was fun. I'd be happy to be listed again.
Okay.
It was a Zoom wedding, but it was fun.
So we will add Keith to that list. So we have there our appointments to various positions from within the board, as well as our village slate of officers. All of the appointments are mine to make, with the exception of everything under section B in the agenda. If you're following along at home, that's the actual slate of officers and the renaming of John Alberg to the planning board and Tim Hamilton to the ZBA. So for the slate of officers, including those names I just mentioned, we do require board approval. So I would entertain a motion at this time to accept the slate of officers as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion among the board? Questions, comments?
Just to say thank you to all those folks who re-upped for another round.
Indeed. Hearing no additional comment, then all in favor of accepting the slate of officers as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on to the second half of the organizational agenda. We have our regular meeting dates scheduled. The only one I believe that we need to pick when we get there is October. The second Monday always falls on Columbus Day / Indigenous Peoples Day. So we always have to reschedule that. And I believe Veterans Day is later that week in November. So I think the 8th will work unless Tammy knows something different. All the other dates subject to change if we have to, but second Monday should work. We have rules which have not changed since last year: how a special meeting can be called, what our quorum requirements are, protocol for executive sessions, how the agenda is set, how the board votes, how minutes are taken, what is included in minutes when they're presented, our order of business for meetings, protocol for FOIL, which essentially just references Public Officers Law, Article 6, how bills are paid and claims are approved, attendance at school and conferences for village employees, including board members, shared public works agreements, our procurement policy, which again is unchanged from last year, and our investment policy, which was first adopted, I believe, in 2017, 16, 17, 18, something like that. And we are renewing it each year. And so with that, I would entertain a motion to accept and adopt the board rules and regulations for the 2021-2022 fiscal year.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, comments? Changes desired? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. That takes us to item number 4 on the agenda, which is our public hearing for tonight's 2021-2022 fiscal year budget. My intention is to go through the budget for the record. And certainly if anyone has questions, I don't see any members of the public present at this time, but if anyone does show and or if representatives from the town or the county have questions, we certainly can take them. So I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing on the 2021-2022 fiscal year budget.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And so the public hearing is open on the 21-22 fiscal year budget. Seeing as there are no members of the public present, I won't go through every line, but I will point out a few things. This budget has been available online and in person for the last 3 weeks. We are holding all full-time village employees other than board members to a 2% wage increase for the year. Per diem and part-time employees are seeing no increase in their hourly rate, subject to review by those particular departments for any adjustments that may need to be made over time. Full-time employees will, of course, have a 2% raise. There is no change in the stipend to village board members or the mayor. Departmental budgets, any increases are primarily due to payroll. The fire department budget and the EMS department budget were set last fall. The police budget actually sees a very slight decrease from last year due to the way we've changed payroll for part-time employees, as well as some adjustments to equipment needs. It's primarily the payroll that's been adjusted somewhat. EMS remains our largest, by far our largest payroll line and largest single department. If we include water and sewer with DPW, that would actually be our largest, but because water and sewer are a separate budget line, they're not combined. So for the bottom line, for anyone, again, keeping score at home, we will be maintaining a tax rate identical to last year, $7.25 per 1,000. This would be the second consecutive year without any change to the tax rate. Although I don't anticipate that is sustainable. I'm glad that we were able to do that during, obviously, last year being COVID and this year being COVID 2.0 or whatever version of post-COVID we're looking at. I'm happy that we're able to maintain a flat tax rate. On the water side of things, we have, again, no change to water fees, water usage charges. And on sewer, for the time being, we have no change to the sewer fees, although that is likely to change once we have our new sewer law enacted, which comes with it a recalculation of certain things, including number of units within the village and so forth. So there could be an adjustment after that's been completed. And so for the purpose of the public hearing, I suppose it would be up to either Ann or Mary, if either one of you have any comments or questions on the village budget.
I do not.
Me either.
Okay, thank you both. Then seeing no one else from the public here, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing on the 2021-22 village budget.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And so unless there's any board conversation or discussion, which we can certainly have, I would entertain a motion to adopt the draft 2021-2022 fiscal year village budget as presented.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
It seems a shame to not at least make a brief comment. I don't really have anything to say other than to reiterate that I think this is not sustainable, but I'm happy that we could do it this year. It felt like the right move, and we'll see how long we can keep it going.
And I will just say a word of thanks to the department heads and everyone on this board, certainly for the efforts in constructing a budget that keeps things in line for one more year. We'll see what the next year brings. Any other comment? Hearing none, then all in favor of adopting the 2021-2022 draft budget as presented, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And it carries unanimously.
And actually, Gordon, if I could interject that if anyone tunes in late and says, wow, that seemed really simple, they're welcome to go back and review the multiple budget sessions that we had, which I believe are archived. So it is in fact not just, oh, she was presented, they all said yes. Look at that.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. It's there are all of our meeting videos are archived. Anyone is interested in seeing all of the highly enjoyable math that goes into all of this, they're welcome to catch up. Item number 5 on the agenda is our first public comment period, privilege of the floor. Seeing no members of the public present, I will move along to item number 6, which is reports from representatives, starting with either Ann or Mary, whoever would like to go first. Ann turned on the camera first, so we're going to let her go.
All righty. Yeah, I can go first. Just give me a second here to queue it up. So most of the updates I have to do with COVID as per usual. The vaccinations are, as people know, they're open to people age 16 and over now. And the 16-year-olds to 18-year-olds can get the Pfizer vaccine, which is available locally. We're encouraging, of course, people to sign up as much as possible at the Tompkins County Vaccine Registry, which you can go to the health department website to do. And if people are unable, if they don't have a computer or access to internet, they can call 211 to sign up for the registry for getting vaccinated locally. And of course, you can go to, a lot of people are eligible to get vaccinated at the state sites and also pharmacies. New York State has so far vaccinated with people with the first shot. 37.9% of people in New York State have gotten their first shot of a vaccine. So that's great. Tompkins County, though, we're up to 51.6% as of today who have received their first vaccination. So that's really great. And that's at all sites. We have only 85 active cases. And I say only as As a lot of you probably know, we've had over 200 in the last month, 4 or 5 weeks. So we had a big spike for a while, and then it seems to be coming down. I'm hoping we don't have a Passover and Easter flare up of the numbers. Hopefully people didn't have too many gatherings. There are unfortunately 6 people in the hospital. And since I spoke to you last month, we had 1 more person pass away due to COVID. So that brings our total for the county 30 who have passed away. So that's not good. Let's see, as people know, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is also available at the county. We're mostly using that for people who are homebound, people who are homeless, and also people who are incarcerated, because it's much easier for those folks just to give them 1 vaccine and then they're done. And we're also continuing to work on areas, people of color, seniors, people who have difficulty reaching the vaccination site. So we're having small pop-ups at various places. Almost all of the senior residential settings have been vaccinated. And we're also going to be working on making sure farm workers, including migrants, are able to get the vaccine if they want it. We did a lot of work, as you know, as the village has also, on reimagining public safety. We passed our recommendations that are going to the state. The next big step is to work on a community justice center. And the start of that is going to be what it can do, what people from the community want it to do, what we think we want it to do. So we don't have anything set in stone, because we want it to be really a product of what does the community want and need, and what can we offer. So I really can't tell you much more details than that at this point. We had the sales tax was down a little bit for January. It was down for the county 14.88%, and from last year. And from the municipalities, it was down on an average of 15.65% for January. Now that part of that, the issue with it being down so low had to do with $300,000 was taken out by New York State to help distressed hospitals in New York. So it helps explain it, but it still doesn't take away the impact from that. So hopefully next month will be a little better. And Cayuga Health and the county surpassed 1 million COVID tests the last couple of weeks. So administering over 1 million COVID tests in a year is incredible. So we celebrated that a little bit. And let's see, we're doing buses to Binghamton and Syracuse if people need transportation. And we're also doing transportation locally. People can call 211 if they need help getting to a vaccination or a COVID testing site. And those are the major things that I have right now.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments for Ann?
Actually, yeah, Miss Ann, the 37.9% that have gotten their first shot, does that include Johnson & Johnson? Do you know?
That includes all of them, right?
Okay, thank you.
So we're hoping to get up to, just wanted to add, since you asked that, ideally we're hoping to get up to 70 to 80% of people vaccinated in this county. Also, keep in mind that we are the second highest county in New York State as far as vaccinations so far, which is great. We were really up there with testing too. So we have a great health department and partnership with Cayuga Health, and we have really great residents who are willing to make sure we're as safe as possible. So we hope we can sustain those numbers up to, or keep going up to 70 to 80%, but other counties around us are not as far as they don't have the same numbers as we do. So we have a lot of interaction with other counties. So we just want to be cognizant of that. When before COVID, we had 15,000 people estimated coming into the county every day to work. So there's a lot of traffic.
Good
Okay,
perspective.
any other questions or comments for Ann?
And thanks for maintaining the tax levy. I know that's not easy.
Less
And
easy every year.
I had one question, and so that as we've heard over the year, there sounds like it's been the county, like everybody else, has had a pretty hard blow with regards to sales tax revenue. Is it expected that the money coming in from the government will compensate for that, or is the county going to face some budget shortfalls or have to make additional cuts in the aftermath of that, in your opinion?
We have our first budget retreat, April, I think it's 27th. So that will be, and that's going to be, you can watch that on YouTube too. That's because it's open to the public. So we don't know. That's going to be our first conversation. We don't know exactly when we'll know for sure, because I think last we knew, I think it was at least 4 million we were in the hole because of COVID. So, or maybe more than that when you consider all the expenses. So I think we were down like 5 or 6 million, and then we've had like 3 million in expenses. So we don't know what's going to get reimbursed through the federal government. I mean, if we get 5-6 million, then, things are going to be looking pretty good. And we also have lots of reserves too. So just too soon to tell, but I'll keep you updated. I hope we don't.
Okay, well, thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Mary from the town.
Yeah, hi. I don't have too much to talk about tonight, but I did want to let you know that I've been in touch with Ben Carver about the possibility of the town and the village jointly carrying out a community campaign for clean heating and cooling, and another campaign for community solar, which is part of the Clean Energy Communities Initiative by NYSERDA. And so these campaigns are really like a public awareness initiative where, we haven't totally scoped out how we're going to do it, but we are applying to NYSERDA to let them know that we plan to initiate these campaigns. And I know that the village is interested also in the Clean Energy Communities Initiative, and it might make some sense for us to partner in these campaigns, in terms of just getting the word out. So we're tentatively listing the village as a partner, a community partner with us on these two campaigns. And I'd be interested to know if how the other, besides Ben Carver and Ben Darfler, who told me that they thought it was a good idea, I would be interested in knowing what the rest of the board thinks.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's no, I think it's great. I think it's part of our ongoing continued efforts we've been making around these items for a couple of years. I don't know if Keith or Jessica have anything specific to add other than that. It's part of our ongoing efforts. I know that the TCOG is still moving forward with the possibility or the investigation of community choice aggregation. And we're certainly active in that effort as well. So yeah, I think any combined efforts is great.
Yeah, I echo that, and that certainly is in keeping with, I think, our constituency and as reflected in the comprehensive plan feedback. So rock on.
Great. Anybody have any questions?
I don't know if you know this yet, but how does NYSERDA work on that? Because there's going to be, we're like overlapping municipalities. And if I recall, there's like requirements for different amount of people to sign up as a result of these things for the, to meet the requirements. Hopefully NYSERDA has figured out some way such that we can coordinate responsibly and reasonably. But that's a detail to figure out, I suppose.
Well, I think that, well, initially when we talked to Terry Carroll about this, he said that so the point of these campaigns is to get the word out and get people to sign up for like a community solar plan, or in the case of the clean heating and cooling, you know, put in like ground or air source heat pumps. So the way they measure the effectiveness of your campaign is how many people you get to sign up. And there's a certain minimum number, and that gives you points, and you accumulate points in order to get energy grants from NYSERDA. And initially Terry said that if somebody in the village was a participant and, for instance, signed up for community solar, then that would count just for the village. And since then, he's told us that it counts both for the village and the town. So,
yeah,
I mean, that's part of the reason why we're thinking it might make sense for us to work together on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll just jump in quickly, and I have a meeting with Terry on Wednesday to go over this among other details. So I'm hoping to get some sort of clarification, because I'm sure there's, I mean, it's NYSERDA, so I'm sure there's some kind of, you know, there's an algorithm somewhere embedded in the whole thing about, you know, how it all comes together. So we'll see.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Anything else? Any other comments or questions for Mary?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mary. So next on our agenda is item number 7, which is our consent agenda. Apparently we had quite a few meetings in March, because we have meeting minutes from March the 2nd, March the 8th, March the 16th, March the 18th, and March the 29th, as well as our abstract of claims, which I'll just read through very quickly here. The abstract includes a general fund abstract in the amount of $238,019.49. A EMS billing abstract in the amount of $8,580.61, a water fund abstract in the amount of $47,643.51, a sewer fund abstract in the amount of $36,898.02, and our trust and agency abstract in the amount of $33,191.28. And so I would entertain a motion to adopt the meeting minutes and abstract of claims as presented in the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Item number 8 on our agenda is reports from board members. Starting with myself, the Trumansburg Deer Management Program wrapped up its I'm losing track, 6th or 7th year now, on March the 31st. I don't have a final deer count. It was around 70. So that is up significantly from the last few years. We will be collating all of that data and sending it off to the DEC as is required by our deer management permits. And then later this year, midsummer, early fall, we'll have a report to present to the board with statistics on number of deer taken, deer population estimates, and the like. The NYSEG streetlight purchase program that we've been meandering through over the last couple of years is finally coming to a conclusion. We have received all of the necessary documentation from NYSEG for us to purchase the streetlights that we don't already own from them. The intention is to close in May at the latest. It's a 60-day window to close on the streetlight purchase. And I believe that gives us until, I believe it was May the 30th, actually. So we have almost 2 full months. One aspect of it that will require board approval, and let me just pull up the document real quick. Okay. Too many emails. Here we go. So if anybody has questions, this is a little bit wonky. So if I'm not clear, let me know. The NYSEG streetlights that the village is purchasing have to be segregated from NYSEG's systems. And we have up to 2 years to do that. That is part of the project that the NYPA, the New York Power Authority, is contracting to be completed. But NYSEG requires either a letter of credit from your bank or a security deposit with them for the cost to segregate those light fixtures from their systems. In the outside event or the outside chance that the village doesn't complete it within that 2-year window, then NYSEG would go and do it essentially at our cost using the money that we've set aside for them. NYPA expects that that portion of the project will be completed within 2 to 3 months, at which time we would get our security deposit back or the letter of credit could be rescinded. I went to Tompkins Trust Company and asked them about a letter of credit. It is technically a commercial loan feature for which there is a $1,000 application fee, which they were not interested in waiving. So the alternative is to deposit with NYSEG in a bank account $31,800, which is the cost estimate for what it's going to cost to get that part of the project completed. We do have that in unencumbered balance, so we would just be setting aside a piece of cash, which would then be returned to us when NYPA's subcontractor has completed that portion of the project. And so, subject to board approval, I would like us to approve setting aside that dollar figure. We won't earn any interest on it, but we will get it back in short order. And hopefully I will have that documentation to execute in the next week or two so that we can begin moving forward. The overall project timeline, so we close on the lights in May. The subcontractor for NYPA, they're a company by the name of Guth de Gonzo. They would be able to begin working right away, and they are looking at anywhere from a 4 to 6 month total completion timeline. So by this fall, we should have LED streetlights throughout the village, controllable remotely through the smart cities technology that they'll be installing along with the LEDs themselves. So certainly if anyone has questions, let me know now or later. But my hope is that we will approve the setting aside of the security deposit cash tonight so that we can move forward as timely as possible.
And just to be perfectly transparent, the amount of interest lost would certainly be far less than $1,000 for a service charge.
Certainly very much less, yes. The $5 in interest we lose will definitely be less than the commercial loan processing fee.
You know what that means? Just out of curiosity, that segregating the lights? That is a
Well,
confusing, like those words don't go together in my mind. I'm sort of,
I will tell you.
It's not just an excuse to charge us money. There's at least words there that they tried.
2 words together equals 31,800.
It's called system isolation. So basically what it means is that the village's entire street lighting system. So I think NYSEG owns 1 or 2 lights within the village area that are theirs. And I can't tell you exactly where they are. I think there's one, maybe Tammy remembers. I seem to remember there's 1 or 2 lights that are NYSEG owned that are theirs, not to be owned by the village. And I'm drawing a blank as to where they're located. But the system isolation is essentially to make the lighting system a closed system, which is what gives us the smart technology accessibility. And that is part of the NYPA grant money, part of the NYPA low interest loan project itself, that the contractor would have been doing anyway in order to install the smart lighting technology. But NYSEG apparently wants to make sure that it's done in short order. Any other comments, thoughts, questions?
It seems good to me. I mean, unfortunate, obviously, but worth doing.
Right, and to be fair, this is not an additional cost. I mean, that 31,000 is part of the total project cost. It's just it's a pain that it has to be doubly set aside for a few months.
Just excited to see this plane coming to the runway. I think the first document was sent in August of 2018, so it's
At least.
And this is another item on that clean energy communities checklist as well. So there's multiple benefits there.
It's a very expensive 700 points.
So then I would, if there's no other questions or comments or no one has any concerns, I would entertain a motion to authorize me to execute an agreement with NYSEG for the deposit as security of $31,800 for the system isolation portion of the LED streetlight project.
So moved.
Second.
Any additional comments? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And that's it for me. Next, it would be Jessica with Fire, TACC, and the Events and Tourism Committee.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. The Chimsburg Area Chamber of Commerce, also known as TACC, is still in its regrouping phase. And moving forward with that, again, if anyone knows anyone who would like to participate, please send them to the chamber webpage, which is up to date, live, and maintained, and actually quite functional. They can contact the president through that. They had a meeting 2 months ago, actually, where they went through and appointed officers so that it could be functional. It is still a small board as of now. So hopefully there'll be more to report about that moving forward. I'll do the fire report next. So was able to attend. We have our meeting conveniently on Wednesdays, or they have the meeting that I join on Wednesdays before our meeting, as you know. So I can report back that for the month of, we are in April of March, there were 30 calls of the fire department. The village had 8, which was 20 hours, labor hours. The town of Ulysses had 12, representing 32 labor hours. Covert none, Hector 1. There were 9 mutual aid calls. And then for the year, there were 92 calls to the village, 113 to the town of Ulysses. And here's what to me is quite interesting. So the 92 calls in the village were 290 labor hours. The 113 for the town were 514 labor hours. Covert had 25, Hector had 10, and there was something like 45 mutual aid calls. So that official report will end up in the Dropbox once that's typed up. But I thought you might want to know. They are working forward with their mutual aid program in communication with other municipalities that sort of say, we're not just gonna, none of us need to show up every time there's an alarm. We can come up with a way to sort of prioritize first alarm, second alarm, third alarm. I'm not sure exactly what the terminology will be, but something that seems to make sense and save time and effort. Sort of along the notion of, and I wish Matt were here, he could confirm this, but the difference between me calling up and saying I have a fire versus someone showing up and say, oh yes, this actually is a fire, and then calling for mutual aid. So they were excited about moving forward to work with that. And also, they just got an opportunity to train to learn how to deal with the electric buses that have been purchased for the city of Ithaca. I believe 4, I did not take a good note on that, buses that will be in service. And so there was quite a bit of excitement about that in general. It was great. It was a great training. They were very pleased. I think that's pretty much it for fire. They have, as you know, agreed to do the chicken barbecue, which will be the first one they've done in a little bit. And so there's a good reminder that this is a bit of work, but they're happy to do it for the community, and it is a fundraiser. And I think I might encourage them to accept general donations if people want to give them as well, because I think we're pretty proud of our fire department. Does anyone have any questions about a fire department or company before I move forward? No? Okay. So the Village Etc. Committee, which is not the Etc. Committee, it's the committee, the Village Events and Tourism Committee, is moving right along, and we have got some feedback from the Little Giant Committee, which is the board, and I believe you are on that. Sandy List is sort of the chair, and they have already built out a design of the structure that will house the Giant. They have funding for it. We will finalize with them where, and you know, the mayor and all of you, where it would be placed in the park, but they are ready to move forward with that. And so our next big mission is to come up with a sign design for the actual place itself, perhaps not call it a park. Think about all of that, and really just beginning the design phase and brainstorming of that. So that's what's happening with that piece of property right now. Karen Powers did offer that certainly more plantings could happen, and I still will connect with you, Ben, to see if we want to have some sign presence, because I know you did do some plantings there for the Arbor or the Street Tree Commission, just to have some acknowledgement of that, or if more wants to happen. Porch Fest received its preliminary permitting, so that's going on Juneteenth, also known as June 19th. And what else is on there? The Village Yard Sale, which Tammy, we talked about last meeting. So the next step for me really is to make the web page live, the site, our page on the Village website live, and list. We decided not to do a Google Calendar, but maybe just list the events, because we don't have, then you don't have to, it's all just visible, a little bit more digestible, which we hope to have up by the end of April. And there's been lots of great suggestions. Several people who have been away for the winter are now back and have really great suggestions about how we might use not only this Village Farmers Market Annex Park. I'm really trying not to use the word park, Roden. It's difficult. and or the water tower area. So things like concrete, okay, concrete ping pong tables, bocce courts, like what more could we do? And frankly, I think it's just encouraging to see that people want to make more use of our public green spaces. I think that's it. That seems like a lot of words. Any questions?
Have you had a chance to discuss or who you might want to reach out to as far as doing the construction or creation of a sign?
We do. It's also been offered. Alan Vogel spoke preliminarily to Karen Powers that he might be willing to do the construction. And so I think what we all agreed was that we kind of need to have some sort of an idea, and then ideally get 3 bids of sign makers once there's an approved design that we want to do and the village itself likes. And Gordon, I don't know how you envision that process. If you want it to be board approved design, we can talk about that offline with all of us.
Yeah, let's talk about that more. I mean, certainly the board needs to approve it, but how we go about soliciting ideas, we can talk about.
So I had recommended having worked, with architects and creative types. It seems most productive if you, the requesting body, have a general concept of what you'd like to do,
Right.
and then go forward and get bids or feedback that way. So yeah, and there was sort of on a side note, but since I have the floor, it was sort of suggested that with all this good sidewalk build work that's been happening, and this notion that maybe some small amount might be able to happen every year if there were funding and community interest, it might be worth maybe having a sidewalk committee of interested people that can just sort of be there instead of having to refire it up every time. And I'm not sure if that's something I should suggest to the planning board or where that is, but I don't want to lose sight of it.
We kind of do.
Oh, great. What is that?
Ben and I have been talking about it, and we agreed in principle that it's a thing that exists now, but we hasn't really gone further than that.
We've been bandying about the notion of a sidewalk committee for over a year or so, and we tried to land it in the lap of the Street Tree Advisory Committee, and were rebuffed gently. So Ben have been coming up with whatever they've just come up with for some time.
So maybe whoever reached out to you about that, I suspect I might have an idea. But if it's not that person, you could also, or any of those people could send them towards Ben and myself. And
so you do have the two of you are overseeing this committee. It's a real thing.
It is a well-formulated idea at this point, but it doesn't exist. I mean, we haven't met, we haven't done anything in practice, but it is something that we've been talking about for a while.
Okay,
So,
do you intend to, what's the next step there?
well, to have a meeting and to make it real.
Okay.
Yeah, at this point, we don't have, we don't have a real concrete mission or members. So it's largely been just Ben and I thinking about what we want the committee to do. And then when we have a real clear vision for it, we'll bring that to this board, or actually really to Rorden, because it'll be Rorden who creates the committee as an advisory committee. And then we'll start reaching out for members and build it like that.
Very good. And do you have intentions that there might be some work this year?
That's really outside of I don't know anything about the work that's been done as far as the sidewalks so far. So no, that's not really within at least my thinking so far. Although I know Ben's been much more involved in that.
Yeah, so there's 2 answers to that. One is work as a committee. I think that I'd like to see us try and formulate the committee by the end of the year in some sort of staffing form. Work as far as actually putting sidewalk down. Right now, that's more of a if someone can get Dusty's ear and make that happen, which I know Alan Vogel, for instance, has been talking with Dusty and may just kind of by force of will make that happen, then that might happen. But I think what we're looking for with the street tree committee, with the sidewalk committee, is something a little bit more repeatable and sustainable.
Right.
That's not just kind of a constant one-off with Alan kind of having to twist arms. But that process may still get us through this year, the twisting of arms process. We'll see.
So the goal, the Ben squared goal, is to have a solid committee by the end of this year, which then can begin to develop the process to move forward and see work done without back channel twisting. Yes.
Right. Right. And just to emphasize, it's more of a long-term planning,
Right.
envisioning kind of a process that we're looking at.
Right. So similar to the idea, I think, I mean, I'm an arm's length away, but from the street tree committee, kind of take a step back, take a survey. Where are we at? What do we want to accomplish? That kind of approach. So yeah.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. And that's all for me.
Thank you, Jessica. Next up is EMS, youth, and the aforementioned street tree advisory with Ben.
Yeah, so I'll just clarify that the rebuffing was by no means gentle. I may have lost a little bit in translation on that. So just to sort of pick up where Mary left off, I first want to just say thank you to Mary. They put together a proposal at the town and then reached out and asked if we wanted to partner. So that was really, appreciate them for thinking of us. And I do hope that it can work out. Just for context, sort of where we're starting this program, because of essentially what Ben did last year, we will begin this project, this cycle, with about 2,000 points, just in projects already completed or nearly completed. So that's including sort of increasing our benchmarking and sort of, a couple little minor tweaks to projects that are already underway. So for reference, 3,000 points, there will get a grant amount of about $10,000. I shouldn't say about, of exactly $10,000. 4,000 is 20, 5,000 is 70. And then each one has a limited number of grants available per region. And then the campaigns that Mary mentioned also come with their own $5,000 grants for having achieved that successfully. And as Ben pointed out, there's a certain threshold that you have to meet as far as participants and that kind of thing. But I will have a more thorough update, hopefully for next month. One of the big projects that I've been looking at is the possibility of adopting the stretch code. So we will see. I've talked a little bit with Tom about that, but I'll try and have a better update as far as the concrete next steps and what we would need to do that and what the stretch code would mean for our code. Sorry if you guys are getting distracted by the noisings. This is what happens when meetings are at bedtime, by the way. We'll see. So I'll try and have a more comprehensive update for the next month. But anyway, so going back to EMS, we've had 18 calls in the village last month, of which 16 were transports, which is a really strangely high number. 44 year to date. I don't have really much to report for EMS outside of that, and a really I promise, very, very quick executive update, really. The Youth Commission, unfortunately, I'm really just relaying to you the minutes. I've been kind of swamped and still playing catch up a little bit, but the Youth Commission, the big news there is that the summer camp signups have been ongoing for a little while. So if anyone is interested, please go to the town website and look for those signups, those programs. Also the program managers, so the programs that we run out of Cooperative Extension have been ongoing. Everything is sort of rolling to, coming together impressively well. I have to say, I don't know, the Youth Commission has been a real source for me throughout this whole pandemic of just like inspiration and, I don't know, a feeling of resilience. So kudos to all of them for that work. The tree committee our big news is that we will be doing a sort of small Arbor Day celebration as part of the Rotary's tree planting at the fairgrounds. So on Saturday, the 24th at 9 a.m., we, invite all of the children. So we will have some of the committee children will be planting sort of a ceremonial first tree. And then the library has put together one of their book walks over at the fairgrounds. So if children come to participate, they can do the book walk, and everyone else can help plant trees. So it'll be a pretty exciting day, I think. Yeah, I think that's about it though. So I'll leave it there.
Great. Any questions for Ben?
Not a question per se, but just one thing to reiterate. I think I brought it up before, but the stretch code is a proposed goal in the comp plan. having heard plenty of feedback from the community wanting to see us improve our energy efficiency and especially new builds going forward. So I feel like that very much aligns with what the community wants. So I'm glad to see that potentially moving forward.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, just to add on quickly to that, Tom's response when I asked him about it was, it felt to him very much like a no-brainer. It's not really a big reach for us as far as building standards or things like that. It's really just a sort of a small tweak. So it seems pretty straightforward, but I wanted to get a little bit more concrete information before I brought it to him.
Okay, good. DPW Water Sewer, CPZR, and Farmers Market. Ben.
Sure. So I'll kick it off with Farmers Market. They have finalized their vendors for this season. That's up online. You can find that on their Facebook page. It looks like a good group of folks, optimistic on the number of food options, which is my primary draw to the market, as well as all the other vendors that are good to see. The other tidbit is that they have been thinking quite a bit about fundraising at a much larger scale than previously. They've been looking, I think we've kind of talked a bit about it here, but just to kind of bring that up and say that I'm encouraged by some of the folks that they brought on for the board, how well the board seems to be working and really focusing on the financial aspect of it that we've kind of charged them with. So hopefully good things to be seen there, especially coming out of COVID and the rough, but still yet very successful previous season that they had. On the CPZR front, our next meeting is on Thursday. We're continuing to look through a new section for accessory dwelling units. So currently we have a section in our code for care cottages, which are similar to, but not quite the same as accessory dwelling units. So the committee's been looking at a couple model laws to gain some inspiration. And there's also pending legislation at the state level that might actually require communities have a certain kind of bare minimum standard of accessory dwelling unit availability or kind of sections in their code to allow those sorts of buildings. So we're trying to get a little ahead of that ball and bring these things together and see what we can put together there. And then the other part is looking at dimensional requirements, lot sizes, setbacks, that kind of a thing, and trying to get a sense of where that might go. That's going to be a bit of a longer conversation, but we're just kind of kicking that off with some first drafts from EDR that we'll push back against and figure out where we go from there. But in general, the goal there, at least for me, is trying to find a way that, we've heard a lot that there's a sense of wanting multiple zones in the village to some degree. But we also recognize that that's rather complicated lift actually to like figure out exactly where those lines go and update the maps and so forth. So we're trying to see if there's some sort of blended middle path we can figure out that recognizes there's different distinct neighborhoods in the village that have their own kind of character without needing to get 15 different zoning regions for residential and getting kind of off in the weeds that way. So we'll see where we can kind of come down on that approach. On to DPW. So just to reiterate here, I've been posting on Facebook, there's a mulch sale going on. We have quite a bit of mulch and we'd like to move through it. So it's $20 for a load. They'll deliver it in the village for another 15 if people need mulch for their spring projects and are listening. Feel free to go to the DPW for that. One other thing on the DPW front. So Pat Masters, we hired him just about 6 months ago. I think next week will be his 6 months. He is still on probation per that contract, per hiring him for the full year after his hire date. In the past, we've typically, my understanding is we've typically done a 6-month probation. And Dusty mentioned to me he's very happy, very pleased with how Pat's work's been working out. Very supportive of the idea of closing out that probation early at the 6-month mark. So I wanted to bring it up here to see if anyone had any thoughts or ideas on that approach. And if not, I'll make a motion to see about that.
Any comment or input from the board?
Is this something that's typically been done in other departments or in this department?
So once upon a time, we only had a 6-month probationary period.
Okay.
I think it was, Tammy would have to remind me, it was 2014, 2015 timeframe, I forget which. We had an issue with an employee in another department, and we looked into the possibility of going forward, extending probationary periods for up to a year, just in case. Civil service will not let you go longer than a year, but you can certainly go shorter. And it is in the DPW contract that we can have a probationary period of up to 52 weeks. So, I mean, typically, historically, it's been 6 months, but we reserve the right to keep it longer, and that's how it's written into the personnel policy and the Teamsters contract.
So my general feeling is that it's good to have as the default policy the longest possible leeway. For us, I think it benefits us as an employer. I'm not at all opposed to shortening it in this case or in any other specific case, just to emphasize that this is not the default or standard, that this is an employee who's demonstrated that he really fits, and that there's no need to have that probationary period in place. But I do think it's important that we maintain whatever flexibility we have, because it doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah, I see this as in recognition of his, coming on the board and joining into the DPW and the work that he's done so far.
Is there a financial repercussion? What changes when you're not probationary? You just feel better, you feel accepted. Like, what's the change?
For the person, that's my impression. It's a recognition of, we're at a job well done, and we're us feeling comfortable with removing that lever that I suppose we have right on our side. It is easier to dismiss someone during probation than post.
I mean, practically speaking, Jessica, a new employee in a probationary period can be dismissed for no cause or cause with a thank you for your time letter. Outside of probation, they enjoy the full protections of civil service, section 75, or their collective bargaining agreement, whichever is stricter. And by stricter, I mean stricter on the employer.
Which is different because it's civil service, because in the rest of New York State, we can say, thank you very much, not working out at any point.
You have a very difficult time firing a non-probationary civil service employee. It's not impossible. It's not impossible by any means, but it is a process, and the process has to be followed very carefully under the watchful eye of an attorney, or a court will say you didn't follow the process properly. Keep that employee.
Okay, so I'm also in favor of following the supervisor of that department's directive that he's ready to say the probation can end. And I think I would also point out, as Ben did to Carver, to echo that maybe in a system that's in a department that's very dependent on the season and the weather, it's kind of nice to have that full year cycle. Like, hey, did so great in the summer. Guess what? Really did not help out in the winter. Like, not so useful. Maybe you want to, that sort of a thing, whatever. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah,
Okay,
for
so
sure.
I'll make a motion that we end the probationary period for Pat Masters, say effective immediately, unless anyone wants to make it exactly a full 6 months. We could postpone it till sometime next week.
I'll second.
All right. Effective immediately.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion?
No, I think it's refreshing. It's great to hear someone want to make a move like that. versus the other way around. You know, speed something up like that based on a job well done. It's great.
Okay, well, if there's no additional comments, all in favor of the motion presented, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And it passes.
All right.
Back to you, Ben.
We will move along to water and sewer. So in the Dropbox under 8, there is a quote from MRB for services to help create a 5 and a 10-year capital plan for water and sewer. This came out of the budget discussions, wanting to make sure that, you know, our having some sort of rubric by which to determine whether our reserve funds are properly funded, overfunded, underfunded, you know, just having a better sense of what we should be targeting. And so the intent is to have MRB, you know, kind of review our systems, all the facilities, all the large equipment, different parts of the systems and so forth, and kind of come back and present us with an idea of what needs to be replaced when, those types of cycles, and give us a better sense of how we should be appropriately budgeting and saving for those sorts of repairs and replacements. So this is for $5,000 for the whole, for both water and sewer. The idea is to take half out of the water budget, half out of the sewer budget, and presenting it here for conversation and discussion, and potential approval for or acceptance of the quote.
And so I'll just add a little bit of additional commentary on that. Within the next couple of years, the reserve lines in water and sewer, probably 3 to 4 years, I would expect that the reserve lines for water and sewer could be very close to or equal to the total budget for those departments. And so my question to MRB is, how much should we actually be carrying in reserves for those lines? Are we getting to a place, you think about the construction cycle for the sewer plant and the water distribution system, second sourcing, you know, are we getting to a point where we have enough on hand that we can actually start either moderating or even potentially reducing water and sewer fees somewhat? If we add users, that certainly would be another reason to moderate those fees somewhat. And so we can't let those reserve accounts get as large as we might want them to be. We can't let them be large enough to do any type of large scale system replacement, because that would just be too large and the comptroller would not be happy. So that's what I've asked MRB. You know, there's a lot of they gave us a couple of different ways that we could go about that. And so kind of the 5 to 10 year, what's likely to need to be replaced version. And if we do need to do a new system overhaul at some point, a couple decades from now, we'll hope that there's grant money available. And so they're going to charge us $5,000 to do the overall analysis of that if we approve it. Thoughts, comments?
I have one question, which is, so this is great. I think it's super smart. The drinking water system 1B, MRB can provide generic recommendations for infrastructure operation. What's that word generic all about? They're saying we're not going to do a super detailed plan specific to you. We're going to give you an overall idea of what. That's just a little confusing to me.
My interpretation of that, and I can certainly ask them, my interpretation of that is that MRB they are not water systems operators. And so they may not necessarily have technical recommendations for certain water distribution protocols. But that's also not what we're asking for either.
So maybe it's sort of like, we'll give you some high level recommendations, not the detailed specifics, is how I could interpret that.
Correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, thoughts?
I like it. Let's do it.
Ben, do you want to make that
Yeah.
motion?
I will make a motion that we accept the quote from MRB, the amount of $5,000 for a water and sewer capital plan, half of which to come from sewer, half from water. I don't know exactly the specific lines, if you have that word in there.
They will be coming out of water engineering contractual and sewer engineering contractual.
All right, I'll move that.
I'll second.
Any additional comment? Questions? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it passes. So you'll get back to Matt on that, Ben?
Sure. Yep. The last thing I have is we have a handful of air conditioning units at the village offices post our changeover to the air source heat pumps, which have cooling as part of that. We attempted to do something useful with them last year, but I think we kind of came to it a little too late and it was a bit past the peak heat of the summer. But now I'm bringing it back up here in April before we get there with the idea of opening it up. If people have ideas of where we can land these air conditioners, that might be a good home. I've talked to Tom and he brought up Ithaca Reuse. Well, let me take a step back. If we want to just get rid of them to call it to solid waste, they'll charge us $25 a unit because of the compression, just to get rid of them for all the pieces they need to get rid of. Ithaca Reuse will take them as well and try and reuse them, but we'll also take that $25 as well because they know that you'll have to pay it anyhow. But that's also not, I think the concern we had last year was that that's not specifically Trumansburg, and it'd be nice if we could keep it within the village as it has been purchased via village funds. So I don't know if people have ideas of where we might be able to land them. We could put them out at the yard sale. I'm not sure if we kind of start getting into muddy water, if we're just give them away. I'm not quite sure how that all works. But wanted to bring up the topic here if people had thoughts and ideas on how to find a good home.
How many are there?
Tom said there's 7, and I'm not quite sure if we need to keep one around maybe for the upstairs that doesn't have an air source heat pump for meetings in the summer. But there'd at least be 5 or 6, I'd think, maybe 7.
Are these window units? What are these? Window units?
Yep.
Carver, does the fire hall or EMS building need anything like that? Is it worth asking them? I have no idea.
I was just actually about to text and see. I don't even.
They have central air, I think, Ben.
Right. I don't think they do.
I think we should ask them. Let's you ask. Yeah, you ask Chris and I'll ask Matt. 7 window AC units. If he has more details, is that something I should ask Tom or ask you, Darfler?
Why don't you ask me, I suppose?
Okay. Barring that, I would say you could put them, we could, if no one else has any other specific village purpose, we could put them on the so what is it called? The T-Berg Facebook page that people post stuff, put it on the, if we wanted to try to keep it in the community and really just give them away.
The gift economy, T-Berg gift economy.
Our limitations are going to be that we can't give it away.
Oh,
We can't?
No.
We sell them?
Yes. You can
For
sell them-
$5?
Sell them by sealed bid or auction, essentially our only, where we're pretty well hamstrung by general municipal law when it comes to giving away village taxpayer assets.
So we'd have to do a bid. We'd have to have a bid.
You basically have to do a sealed bid for something that people won't bid on.
I'd be happy to
That's
be auctioned.
That's why there are 7 of them sitting upstairs.
Could we do a silent auction at the State of the Village? For 50 cents starting bid? I mean, like.
It's possible.
I'd rather volunteer to lead a live auction.
There you go.
I mean,
Oh, would
I'd
you?
rather Keith lead a live auction as well.
Are you being silly or would you do that?
I would absolutely do it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure anybody how many buyers there's going to be, but I would.
I just had an idea. Let me, hold on a second.
Door prizes at the village.
Can't give them away.
Make a comment at State of the Village. Get an air conditioner.
Because
No, I
your
just had-
words have value. See? I like that. That's good.
I just had an idea. Let me run it by our auditor, and then I'll get back to you.
I'll also, well, I mean, if EMS and EMS are fired, need them, we should start there. So still do ask, and I'll ask Dusty as well if DPW has any need, but otherwise, yeah, that'd be great to whatever Roden's got cooking. That is all the updates I have.
Okay, any additional comments or questions for Ben? If not, then we'll move along to police. Keith.
Oh, there we go. Pretty quick update. First, wanted to let everyone know that we've, as we've talked about, we purchased the new body cameras I think a couple months ago, and they will be officially implemented the week of April 19th. So as of that week, the officers will be wearing them, which is great and was certainly a part of our public safety reform discussion. So happy to see those being deployed. In terms of March numbers, 298 calls for service. On the criminal investigation side, 6 harassment/disputes, 4 fraud investigations, which were all part of the New York State unemployment scam that maybe some of you have heard about. I actually got a letter in the mail a couple months ago that someone tried to file unemployment claims on my behalf. The good news there is now I get my Yahoo email, which I typically use for my junk email, is now every day is full of who in New York State is hiring. So thank you for the person that signed me up. Now I'll always know where the hot job leads are. In terms of non-criminal investigation, 182 property checks / residential checks and 20 offer initiated vehicle stops. No criminal arrests or violent crimes to report in March, which is good. Chief wanted me to again extend his thanks to everyone who participated in the community discussions. I think we had a special meeting to adopt that reform, but we haven't had an actual monthly board meeting since then. So just thank you again, everyone who was part of the process that made it possible. And we look forward to, as Roden alluded to earlier, getting that committee going to continue the discussion and chart a long-term vision for public safety in Trumansburg. I think that's about it for me. If there's any questions, Ben, going back to the farmers market, I did get a call from Shirley, and I will be calling her back later this week. I've transitioning to the new day job, kind of lost sight of that voicemail she left me, but I'll be calling her back this week to see how I can help with fundraising in the farmers market.
Fantastic. And I also, though, they've been looking at some of the some of the issues I think you've been looking at with the police on inclusivity and diversity in the village too. So they might want to hit you up on that front as well.
Sure. Yeah. And again, reiterate Roden's point of, interested individuals letting us know. And if anyone on the board, I know one thing that came out of the reform discussion was, the feeling that there are people in underrepresented communities that don't feel confident in stepping forward and volunteering for things, or they're a little intimidated. So if there's anyone that falls into that category that at least find out what would help them feel more comfortable coming forward and joining a committee like this, that would be really helpful. Happy to put the work in to just, increase that comfortability to make someone consider joining up a committee like this. So please.
And Keith, to be clear, this is for Village and the Town of Ulysses residents who could be part of this committee, who is eligible to join.
Yeah, Roran, I don't know if this is an official village committee.
Yeah, it's probably, I'm always willing to make an exception if it's warranted, but it's probably going to be village residents only.
Though might facilitate conversations with a wider group
Sure.
at the committee
I mean,
itself. Okay.
The reality is the town of Ulysses has every right to hold these, to create these types of committees for their own conversation. And they certainly, we have a good relationship with the town, so we can coordinate if they wanted to. But it is a village police department, and these issues are ours to manage. I will just add one thing. I wasn't going to mention it earlier tonight, but since it's in conversation, I'll mention it, that I have been interested in and sensitive to the concerns brought forward by some folks that there are any number of people who would like to participate in these kinds of things, but don't feel comfortable necessarily stepping forward or raising their hand or joining. So as I was kind of thinking this through over the last couple of weeks, the reason I chose the name that I chose for the committee, Law Enforcement and Public Safety, is I actually woke up in the middle of the night thinking that public safety has become, in some communities and in some conversations, public safety has become a euphemism for law enforcement. And I actually reject that notion. Public safety is a much, much broader conversation. It's a much, much broader concept. And I think, if you want laws enforced, you have to have law enforcement. If you want the speeder who's doing 50 and a 25 stopped, you have to have police. And so there is a specific part of the conversation around policing and law enforcement, which it may be harsh sounding for some, but it is simply a reality. Public safety, on the other hand, is everything. Public safety is the Safe Spot initiative. Public safety is the individual walking down the street who isn't comfortable, perhaps even walking down the street because they've been called names or had epithets thrown at them. Public safety includes members of the public feeling safe enough to be willing to sit on a committee with their neighbors and fellow community members. So I'm hoping that part of the conversation is broadening that notion of what is public safety in the 21st century. And so I intentionally chose that name to further spark the conversation of how come we're not talking more about inclusion and diversity. Well, if someone is not feeling safe enough to participate and be included, then that is an element of public safety that we need to talk about. So yes, if anyone knows of a village resident who would like to participate, whether they are reluctant to or not, if they need encouragement, then either Keith or Jessica or Ben or myself will be more than happy to offer them encouragement.
Yeah, I kind of speak for him because he generally has a very much an open door policy. I'm sure Chief would be willing to speak with someone who would also have interest, but maybe have some intimidation about joining.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else police related for Keith?
I'll also thank Officer McKenzie, who responded to, I made a call. I called something in. I was walking to the opening of Not My Dad's and spotted a suspicious raccoon moving about the playground. Come to find out, it actually wasn't that suspicious, but I've just never seen a single raccoon moving about in the daytime. But apparently it's really common, according to Officer Covert. But I only see them late at night when they're rummaging through my garbage cans. So but I saw something and I said something. It's suspicious enough for me to just never, and I've never seen a raccoon on the playground, and it literally just was making its way around the school campus, and I followed it. Citizens on patrol,
Surveilled it.
until the officer could arrive, and only to find out that the raccoon, according to Officer Covert, was behaving quite normally in terms of what should be expected of a raccoon. But that's neither here nor there, I suppose. Thank you. Thank you to the
I just got to
department.
jump in here. I got to jump in because a couple years ago I had a very similar experience with a bear, and I got a very similar reaction. Like, oh no, that's just a bear doing bear things. Don't worry about it. I was very concerned.
I mean,
So-
5 years of living next to the school, I've never seen a raccoon on the playground, but I'm told that's not odd. So, so thank you. I got educated on that.
While we're wildly off topic, I was
I don't think it's police. It's police.
I'm now aware
Just
that
incident.
that hairless raccoons are a thing as of today, and that's not a thing I wanted to know, but now I know it today. So now you all know it too.
Well,
Did
the
you just
war-
like double toucan dare us all to Google hairless raccoon? I'm not doing it. I am not taking the bait.
All right, moving right along. Treasurer, Vicky.
Last month was a lot of budget stuff, and then kind of playing catch up after that. So this month we'll do a lot of follow through. Now that the budget has been adopted, there's several reports that have to be done for the state of New York. And I will get it in the form of Williamson that says adopted and get that on the website and to our auditors and all the people that need it gotten to. I did receive today the final audit reports that I will put in the Dropbox and will post. Well, I won't post them, but I'll have someone post them on the website. They will also need to be distributed to OSC, Municipal Solutions, again, the auditors, and S&P, Standard & Poor's. And I did receive all the bank statements for March, so I'll get those done hopefully on Thursday. So we'll know where we stand right now with a lot of other things. Morgan and I have been working on the issue with payroll not distributing like snow properly. We have all that done, and we're going to keep it up on a every 2 weeks basis. So that'll be all done in April. You'll see it reflected in April because I did the transfer in April. So now Gordon wants me to start working on the budgets for EMS and fire in the new conceptual way that he's talked about. So I'm going to kind of start that and work with him to make sure that's what he's looking for before I distribute those to Jess and Matt and Ben and Chris to start working on. So
you're hoping to do that in April to have maybe try to have available in May so we can start. Is that sort of the timeline?
No, I'm going to try to have them in like no later than mid-May to Rorden.
Okay.
So him and I can work out the bugs and get them to you guys by
For June.
hopefully the first couple weeks in June.
Okay, good. And I didn't report, Vicki, I'm sorry to interrupt your session here, that Matt and I will be getting together just to make sure we're on target for the remainder of this budget cycle. There's no sense that we aren't, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Rorden, does that work for you the month of May to work on this?
Yeah, and actually you can give the departments their traditional budgeting format.
Okay.
It's only when we plug it into our village budget next year. I don't need to see, for instance, you and Tammy and Morgan, I don't need to see your wages broken out to EMS. That doesn't matter. It only
Okay.
matters to water and sewer.
Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't realize that. Okay. Yeah, so Jess, I'll get yours to you the first week in June. And I'm sorry, and Mr. Carver. Other than that, day by day.
Okay, any questions for Vicky?
Oh, one other thing, just, I don't know if Ben Darfler knows this, but this year the farmer's market has decided that they wanted to send out invoices to all of the vendors. So I did take care of that about a week and a half ago for Natalie. So those checks have been coming in. She thinks it might be a better way than, I honestly don't know how they've done it in the past, getting that information to the vendors. So we've done that too. They're trying to change some things to be more financially, I don't know, a little better.
Telling you, I'm really liking this board so far.
They're they're on it. They really are. And Natalie's very, very good to work with. She knows what she's doing.
Okay, good. Clerk, Tammy and Morgan.
Okay. So for the month of March, I don't have a lot to report. But I guess we're getting ready now that the budget is adopted, gearing up for tax season over the next few weeks. And of course, working on the state of the village over the next couple of weeks. I'd like to get the postcards out the week of the 19th, gives everybody 4 weeks notice. We'll also put the date and time on the water bills that go out May 1st as well. So we'll try to cover it, and then I'm working on some stuff for the social media aspect as well. So as soon as you guys set the budget tonight, we'll be ready for that. Excuse me. The one thing coming up for April that I do need some guidance on is water re-levies. The default rate right now has been $250. So anybody who owed more than $250 by the end of April, that money would go, or that balance would go onto their village taxes. So I just wanted to check in with everybody and first of all, make sure we are going to re-levy. And if we are we looking at changing the amount? What do you want me to do? And that's pretty much it.
Do you have a number off the top of your head of how many are over 250?
No. I mean, I could get one fairly quickly, probably in the next 3 minutes.
Just curious if it's more than average.
Yeah, I can look, Gordon. That's not a problem. If you want me to do that real quick, I'll do that and then I'll come back.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, while Tammy is working on that, she did mention State of the Village, and that is old businesses next. So I think I'll just go ahead and jump to that so I don't forget it. We do need to set the agenda for the State of the Village. I know that I want to include a 2020 year in review, although I'm sure some folks won't want to look back at 2020. I think there are some things that we can highlight that we are pleased. 2020 at the same time felt like a really long year and a long time ago, but certainly are having our first new fire chief in almost 2 decades. The police reform process, Chief Nelson's leadership in the department, LED streetlight, stormwater grant. I mean, there were things worth highlighting and talking about. And then by mid-May, we can begin also talking about, although we'll be almost halfway through the year, we can call it a 2021 preview, where things stand with the stormwater grant, for instance. We can give an update on where things stand with the comp plan, zoning revision. We can possibly even talk about, I don't know if community choice aggregation will be far enough along to discuss, but anything that we feel like as we put together that agenda for the 2021 preview that we want to include. So year in review, 2021 preview and looking forward, and then what else? What else do we feel like perhaps deserves its own? Maybe the comp plan deserves its own segment. We have 3 hours and we can break it down however we'd like.
I mean, the key topics that came to mind for me was comp plan, zoning piece. And I do want to make sure that we mention the LED stuff because it's going to be very resident visible and coming up shortly. And I want people to not wonder why are there trucks up and down the road and what's going on. But that doesn't have to be a big piece, just make sure that it's mentioned. And then I think something around the LEAPS work and the policing discussion would be another good one to bring up.
Okay. Anything else we can think of?
Well, Gordon, maybe that's already included in your mind, but in the notion, it's just sort of like village projects. So moving forward on what our goals are for developing, like we are moving forward, though it may be slow with the bridge, the footbridge, that we are looking at maximizing our green spaces and bringing more park experiences for our citizens. And I'm sure like working coordination for the cemetery bridge improvement. I don't know, maybe some acknowledgement of our public spaces.
Okay.
Yes, of course, the pedestrian bridge. Can't forget that one.
If we do, someone will bring it up.
I don't know if we should bring that up until it's done. I mean, we have to, now that we've said it out loud, we have to, but
Probably,
Well,
but I feel like it's more like it's got a more forward trajectory, like momentum than I think I've seen it in the past 2 years. So we should celebrate that.
I will say I did get an email a week and a half ago from a village resident who was very excited when they saw the survey markers and was very happy that we have not let the topic just lie there and die there. So I think it'll be good to mention at least where we stand. 6 weeks from now, I don't know if any construction will have begun, but we can at least give people a glimmer of hope.
Well, I think it's also that tangible, here's really what we're doing for you. Like all the other work that we do is really, really important, but those things they can see, feel, touch, and use, I think are worth putting a little pom-pom shake behind in the public forum. Yes, Martin, I'm suggesting you bring pom-poms this year.
At least giving a quick, I think, summary of where from the time, the timeline of everything. Because I think there's been times where things are assumed to be simple and quick fixing and what's the deal and could have done that over the weekend kind of thing. So I think it would help to give, I don't know if we've ever in a big forum had a chance to really explain in some detail other than, at occasional board meetings. So
do you think it's worth, since it was so well attended tonight, do you think it's worth going over our budget and kind of where things stand? We did, it wasn't last year because we didn't have one last year. Oh yeah, we did. All these years are running together now. Did we do the big budget percentage of the budget that accounted for payroll? Was that 2019 or 2020?
I thought that was last year.
Was it 2020? Boy.
Give me a second. I can tell you exactly what our topics.
Well, this is unique, right? Because typically a state of the village comes 2 months before or a month before budget planning even begins. So this is
right.
This is fresh now. I think it might be worth restating what was talked about tonight in terms of, we've remained flat 2 years in a row, but, don't be shocked when their adjustments have to come in next year and, maybe the following years.
Would you like me to tell you what the topics of conversation were last January or a year ago January?
Yeah, can you hold off
February?
one second on that though, Tammy? Because I just want to throw in with this notion of the budget. This is the drum I beat all the time. Oh, hey, by the way, people, if this is shocking to you, please remember this is a process that we did over a month and a half. If you're now sparked, please take part next season. Bring your questions up, pay attention, like engage. This is for you. Don't just come to church on Christmas and tell me that I'm being a bad minister. Or some appropriate version of that.
Interesting analogy, actually.
All right, so February 1st, 2020. The topics were 2019, the year in review, and a look ahead at 2020. And then off of that was CPZR, the STAC committee, police, fire and EMS, DPW, water sewer, and budgeting. And then bullet number 3 was projects and initiatives. A being stormwater management, B being sidewalks, West Main Street, C being fire and EMS facility, and D being the solar initiative. And then the break and the open Q&A, and then adjournment.
Okay.
Looks like we could almost keep that, right?
Yeah, well, we had no idea what 2020 had in store for us, so we could reuse that agenda. No, I will, if it's okay with the board, Tammy and I will work on the draft postcards with the agenda on it and circulate it before she sends them to be published and mailed.
Water mitigation would be, is good. That's I don't know if you want to revisit that. Just throwing that out there, unless you have more to say about what's going to be happening with the MRB, Ben, or I mean, you just open up a giant whole world of, and maybe that's important. Maybe that's part of the function of the state of the village of like the 500-year storm and what is our plan. And
Yeah, that's too big of a conversation, I would say. But I think it is worth reiterating that, if and when DASNY money lands, we might be in a position to do some of that work this year. And so to that extent, it'd be good to kind of mention where that work might happen. So maybe there's a chance that if and when it happens, someone's heard of it and has some sort of clue what's going on when it happens.
Okay, so this will be my
Okay.
first time on this side of the table of the bed where we're having this meeting. For the state of the village, does each commissioner give a report? Is that something that I should be preparing for, or not necessarily?
That's up to us. I mean, we've done that before. I've also monopolized the mic before. I mean, it's really up to the board how we want to do this. I mean, I think if we do a 2020 year in review and 2021 look forward, that can be fairly short. I think the comp plan piece should be Ben. Kind of the efforts that went into the police reform should be Keith. I'm happy to do the budget review. And then really it's just, Ben and Jessica, if there's anything in particular you wanted to cover from the perspective of those departments, or it's really our format to create. So.
Okay.
I'll say for myself, I don't have any project that I'd really like to publicize. I mean, aside from the tree project, which I talked about last time. I'd be happy to say something if anyone felt like there was something for me to say, but I don't want to insert myself just for the sake of, standing up in public.
Well, and was Chris Fox new as of last year, Ben? Is it worth welcoming him like new chief will be welcomed? I can't remember the timing.
He wasn't there for the meeting last year.
Okay.
But I do believe I introduced him.
You did.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like if nothing else, if there aren't any initiatives to talk about, which and I'll triple check with Matt that there isn't something he specifically brought forward. I think that there should be, Roden, in your recognition of a new fire chief, general acknowledgement of the services, the emergency services, right? And because especially that one where we were, I don't know, it's a budgetary topic for a lot of people that they have concerns. So I think.
Yeah, that'll be certainly a piece of the budget discussion. It is the 70th anniversary of the founding of the fire company, so that'll be a reason to acknowledge it, but they'll be able to know that they'll be able to smell the acknowledgement in the chicken barbecue happening in the parking lot. So the other thing that I expect we will field questions on at some point is depending what this dollar allocation to the village actually is from the federal government, there's going to be a question of, how to give that back to the taxpayers. And I think the right answer, of course, is to spread it out for as long as humanly possible and manage future increases, not to swamp next year's budget with a $1 rate decrease and then only to bring it back the next year, that kind of thing. Okay, well, we'll work on that this week, Tammy, if you'll start putting that together and then circulate it to everyone so we can get it printed next week.
Will do.
What did you find out on the water there, Tammy? The water bills.
I'm sorry. So right now we have, as of today, we have 70 accounts are at 250 or more. And right now we're just under 38,000 in just those 70 accounts.
How does that compare number wise to the last couple of years, number of accounts?
If I were to look at what I've levied at the end of April, I would say it's more accounts and it's about 12,000 over what it generally is when I first send out notices, I think.
Yeah.
Because usually by the time we re-levy, Vicky, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's usually somewhere between like 17 and 20, right?
I was gonna say like 22 for some reason,
Yeah.
that number. So yeah, it's still way more than it has been.
Significantly more.
Yeah.
But we're also billing more frequently. So I don't know how that plays into, it's hard to average because this time last year we were still doing quarterly bills up until May or July.
So I don't think there's a reason not to re-levy as is our standard practice unless anyone on the board has a strong opinion to the contrary.
Is there a specific timeline that, like, if we don't re-levy this month, do we miss the opportunity because it?
Yes, because I have to send all of these 70 accounts notices about their past due and letting them know. And I have to have payment by, I would say no later than the second week in May. Their accounts this bill needs to be brought up at least to that 250, but we're going to bill again on May 1st. So I have to take payment and get the re-levy by the 15th of May to the county for our billing, for our tax bills.
My inclination would be, I mean, depending on how you write that notice, to at least let people know that, like, in a sort of COVID era, we would be more than willing to, like, give people an out if they demonstrated some commitment or some need. To me,
and I'm not suggesting that that's not a good idea. I just think that with the timeline, it's going to get complicated because if we don't get it on the June tax bills, we're not going to get it unless they pay it directly.
Right. I mean, to me, I would grant any response at all as like a willingness to pay and a need for assistance. To me, I mean, if we're substantially over, I would rather not put anyone in the village in a financially like untenable position because of a water bill. I mean, those are like, that's substantial numbers. If it's not doable, it's not doable, but that strikes me as pretty straightforward. If they respond by May or, by June, when you have to send it out, then we can not include them in the re-levy and deal with it on a case-by-case basis. Do you think it would be a lot of people responding?
Oh, I think that when the bills, I mean, when we send out the letters and it's basically, I don't want to, it's pretty warm and fuzzy, pay this or we're going to put it on your tax bill. It's not so much of a demand letter. But generally, I would say a quarter to a third pay it immediately the minute they get the notice. It's just one of those things that they've, has fallen off the radar. But I don't know. I see a lot of names on this list that generally aren't on the list.
So my inclination would be to add a third option, pay, or it goes on your taxes, or, pay or get in touch with us, or it gets on your taxes. And we don't need to emphasize it as a big program or anything. But to me, if someone reaches out and says, look, I'm in desperate times, that works out. But I feel like I'm the only one talking, so I would love to hear what other people think.
Keith, Jessica, Ben?
Well, my sentiment lies with that, but what's the reality? So let's say I haven't been able to pay my water bill, and not because I've just spaced, but because I don't have it. If I reach out to you and say, I don't have this, can I have a payment plan? Is that a thing?
It's it's a thing, but it's not like a software thing where I'm going to generate, payment plan, kind of like a NICEAG thing or whatever. It'd be much less formal. It's just, it's just keeping track of the folks that want to pay but can't and keep them off the re-levy. I mean, it's not a huge deal. We can make it work.
I mean, I would be in favor of that if that's possible. And then there's.
Well, and the reality is that if they, if someone doesn't pay it, we're going to be right back here next year and having the same conversation. And it's, at that point, now it's doubled and it's going to the tax bill. So within village residents, it's, it's a responsibility. It goes to your tax bill if it's not paid, and you can't sell without it being settled. So,
Is it worth also in that communication acknowledging that didn't we waive fines for overdue payments?
Yeah, we haven't.
So I think that I know you'll have a great
year.
letter, but maybe acknowledging that maybe it's not necessary, but
Whatever you guys want me to do.
Morgan, can I ask a question of Tammy? Tammy, if we don't re-levy the water and sewer now on their taxes, is it possible to do that like in January when we generally send all that to the town? Okay, so we
No.
wouldn't be made whole even if, okay, I didn't
No.
know, just curious.
Mm-mm.
Okay,
No,
We'd be
they're all the
waiting
same
in-
number.
okay.
I think I'm inclined to agree with Ben's approach here. Where my head went was wanting to make it fair, might not be the right word, but not just kind of arbitrary. But I think the idea of making, putting the onus on the person to reach out and have some sort of conversation with us, I think kind of takes that away from me. And that shows some sort of desire and need. And doesn't, it gives a good reason of why some people will get re-levied and some people won't, kind of a situation. So I think if that's the hurdle, which I don't think is a very high hurdle, but does require some engagement and action on that person, I think I like that approach.
And who's going to decide who, and I don't want to say who to believe and who not to, but how are we going to judge? Who's going to judge? That feels like a slippery slope to me.
My read of what Ben was saying is that we don't judge, just the act of anyone making any sort of
Okay.
communication back to us with any sort of anything is enough. So, and I think that works because a lot of people won't even do that. Right. But if someone reaches out, we just kind of take them at their word.
Keith?
I'm fine with that. But I mean, yeah, I don't. But and maybe typical circumstances would be more stringent, but
So I just want to,
So,
you know
no.
how this plays out.
no,
If
this is
we-
what's Tammy, this is what you're gonna do. You're going to send your regular re-levy letter. You're gonna state that this is what you owe.
Mhm.
In order to avoid having these charges re-levied onto your village tax bill, please contact the village clerk's office by and give a date. Anyone who contacts you by phone, email, or in person to say whatever, if they contact you, don't re-levy it. Anyone who doesn't contact you, re-levy it.
Okay.
And if someone contacts you and says, I'm not going to pay you, but they've contacted you, then we will let them accrue for another year, because the state of emergency is going to wind down here shortly, and penalties and interest are going to start to accrue. So that's the other stick behind the carrot.
Okay.
And I'm super good with all that.
It's the only non-arbitrary way to do it.
And I'm super good with all that, as long as at some point someone understands what will happen. That I've contacted you, I can't pay. Great. That then there's some like, okay, well, this is what's going to happen, and this will be the result if you don't pay by the next tax levy, or that all of that information is really digestibly.
Okay. Got it.
I mean, if there are 90 people on the list, I'd be willing to bet my water bill that you'll get less than 20 phone calls. If it's more, great. Then maybe those people want to make it right. But my guess is you're looking at an over under of 20. There'll probably be some of those 20 will ask those questions, and obviously you'll answer them. And then just don't re-levy those 20. We'll wait a year.
Okay.
Anything else under old business? If not, then under new business, I want to mention nothing for us to really do tonight, but if you're not aware already, I know it's been circulated in the weekly email news items from the town of Ulysses. There is currently an ongoing National Heritage Area feasibility study. So I don't remember, I think I might have mentioned this in a budget meeting, actually. Senator Gillibrand was able to attach to a bill a couple of years ago a study, the beginnings of a feasibility study for naming the Finger Lakes region as a National Heritage Area. It's a multi-year process that's run by the National Park Service. If she is successful in her efforts, then naming the Finger Lakes area as a National Heritage Area does a lot of things in terms of grant money, grant funding, federal funding for the region. There is an open public comment period that the National Park Service is running right now until, I believe, the first week of June. And I would like to get the village on record with a letter of support and likely a resolution of some kind in favor. So assuming that there's no objection to that, I will start working on something to that effect over the next few weeks to hopefully have for our May meeting. I'll circulate it to the board prior to that, but to make it official at the May meeting with a letter and resolution of some kind, I think it would be great for the area. And so that's on my to-do list, unless anyone thinks it's not worth our time. Okay. The second thing under new business is, and Ben, I hope you have it handy.
It's in the Dropbox 10B.
Is it? Did I put it in the Dropbox? Oh, great. So 10B in the Dropbox, we, in discussions with MRB relating to various grant funding mechanisms, we had a conference call, Ben and I, and MRB, and Municipal Solutions, who does all of our efforts when it comes to bonding. We had a conference call a couple of weeks ago about what's available primarily in the water and sewer infrastructure world when it comes to grants. And it was brought to our attention that we are a handful, and by a handful, it sounds like 2 or 3 people short of a threshold, which would make us eligible for certain types of grants. And 2 or 3 people short would be 2 or 3 people in a low to moderate income range. And so it was suggested by Municipal Solutions that we hire a third party to do an income survey. And in this case, it would be an income survey of either non-village water and sewer users, of which there are many, or an income survey of the entire village population. The cost estimate, which is what's in the Dropbox and is not opening for me at the moment, you'll be able to see is 2 very different numbers. We have a number of where are we? Outside service area only, which is approximately 152 households outside of the village that receive village water or sewer services or both. The contractor will effort a response rate of at least 80%, which will require extensive door-to-door canvassing. They will charge us $3,790 for that effort. If we wanted to do the entire village, 823 households, the fee would be $12,990. I am not, at this moment, unless anyone wants to try to talk me into it, I'm not in favor of the entire village version. But I think we should consider the outside service area one very seriously. It sounds like, again, from the conversations with Municipal Solutions, that we are only a small handful of individuals short of a percentage from a population standpoint that would qualify us to apply for certain types of grants that we are not otherwise qualified to apply for. Any board comments, thoughts, questions on whether to move forward with this, whether to table it, or how to proceed?
I'm interested in the outside approach. I think there, it sounds like there's a benefit of maybe $500 if we were to do both together. I don't know if that might even still count if we did one and then the other. But even if we didn't get that $500 discount, I don't see much value in. That's not a huge number compared to what else we're looking at. I guess what I'm saying is, let's start with the outside, see what happens. If that isn't enough, we can have another conversation about doing the inside the village. But yeah, I think I was so close. It's just so few number of people.
Yeah.
That I'm cautiously optimistic that with the folks, looking at the folks who are just outside resident or outside water and sewer, I think I'd like to see what lies behind that door first.
Right.
Well, this notion of income, will this be based on 2020 tax year?
I don't know how they,
That's definitely going to show a
It's a
change in income, I would say.
it's a survey, right? So it's stated income, certainly not asking for any proof. And the various grants, particularly CDBG, Community Development Block Grants, USDA Rural, that's rural development. Those are the 2 big grants that use program eligibility based on median household income. So the fact that it's survey based, it's certainly the least scientific way of people declaring their income. But on the other hand, when you're not under any obligation to provide it to someone sending you a survey or knocking on the door, then stated income really is the only the only thing we have to work with. So,
And then the results of the survey would be enough to substantiate that we do have a certain income level that we serve to the powers that grant. Given
yes.
all that, like this is okay.
Yeah, that's the hope, right? Where I think we need a threshold, and I can't remember. It's something like, 60% below a certain number, and we're at like 59 point something percent people below, at that number. So yeah,
I mean, I think this is the year to survey. I experienced 3% decrease in pay last year, so survey based on 2020 reality. And yeah, I'm in favor of the outside.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also want to draw attention to the use of effort as a verb. I don't know what that means in terms of if we actually hit 80%, but yeah, I'm on board, especially with the outside. I think the way Ben described that, outside, and then depending on the results, maybe reconsider. But I think that's a good approach.
Okay. Then in that case, I would entertain a motion to, because he does want 30% down. I would entertain a motion to accept the outside service area only survey quote from G&G Municipal Consulting and Grant Writing in the amount not to exceed $3,790 plus postage.
So moved.
Second.
Any additional discussion or comments? Vicky will be splitting this between water and sewer also. If there are no additional comments, then all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Well, thank you for that. And the last item under new business is the village energy report, which I'll hand off to Ben.
Sure. So I will try and keep this brief. The energy report is in the Dropbox. It's in the agenda packet, and I will also post it individually after this sometime this week. But just to say, this is our annual energy report as part of the first round of clean energy community that effort that we went through, whatever we call it. We now monthly, and thank you to Vicky for her time and effort on that, put in our NYSEG bills into a online tool that then allows us to calculate energy use over time and other various pieces of information about our energy use. And so we've used that data as well as kind of a little bit of a narrative to compile this report. So just a couple of quick highlights. Things that we completed over the past year was additional weatherization in the village hall. That allowed us to decommission the boiler in the village hall. And then as we talked about tonight, we've made significant movement on the LED streetlight front. That project should be kicking off in the next couple of months in earnest. And then for looking a little bit more down the road, as we also mentioned tonight, Ben Carver is looking at more of the clean energy community leadership round, so kind of the extension of what we've already put together. And we've also mentioned that the TCOG effort to look at community choice aggregation, which would be another further effort down the road. So all in all, the numbers actually speak very well for what we've done. Part of that, I imagine, is potentially less people in the office at different times. But we did see a downtick in energy use in all of our buildings except for the wastewater treatment plant office, which I'm actually looking into and talking with Dusty in Camden about what that might have been. So we'll see if we can't sort that out, if there is a particular issue or not. But in general, we continue to do a pretty good job, I would say, by slowly but surely walking in the right direction. So that whole report will be up on the website shortly.
Great. Thanks, Ben. Any comments on anything Village Energy Report related?
I can look at it more deeply, Ben. Maybe you can direct me though. I'm not seeing a score for the fire hall. It just says no score. It just lists what they assessed.
Yeah. So that is that score comes from it being how do I frame it? The score is in relation to other buildings of that type nationally. And so when you look at like the village hall, it's an office. And so it kind of knows what that's supposed to be. The fire station is a fire station. I don't know as if there's like a baseline score for fire stations nationally. And so therefore we don't get this kind of nice like number score. Instead, we just have the
stats.
The stats. Yeah.
So could I refer to did we have a similar report last year and I could look and see what usage was like in comparison?
Yes. Yep. You can. And the graph that's in the middle is a
Attempting to
graph
tell
of
me that.
years. It's a little bit small, but if you look at it, it goes 2017, 18, 19, and 2020 for each
Okay.
of the buildings.
Okay, great.
So you can
Thank
see
you.
that visually. Yep. And then, then there's more of this energy performance scorecard, but only some of them get a score because only some of them have, I think, a benchmark to compare to.
That's great. No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Any other items of new business? Then we're up to item number 11, which is our second public comment period, and seeing no members of the public present, I'll move on to item number 12, which is an executive session. I believe, Ben, you mentioned you have a short personnel one. So I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss a personnel issue as well as a legal matter.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, give me a moment and we will be good to go.